Hey, welcome to 30 Days to Building a Marriage You Love. I'm Danielle Wingate,
I'm Chris Wingate.
and we are excited to bring the second tip for you, which is
Believing the best.
Believing the best. So what does believing the best mean to you?
For me, it means that it is my responsibility, regardless of everything else going around, the fight, the argument, or the, what do we call it? The intense fellowship.
Our conflict.
Yeah. Intense fellowship, conflict. It starts and ends with me.
You took my line. Okay. So believing the best, he took my line, but it is all about a mindset. And so it starts and ends with you is really about this responsibility that you think about your person and in the best light and their best presentation of how like they treat you, they vocalize, whatever, that you have this belief that what they're doing, saying, how they're responding, like what is the best way that you can think about it in the sense that you now show up well to the conflict, the disagreement. So, for example, if Chris and I are running short on time, short on obviously energy, and he responds really like quick and snappy to me, which obviously never happens, I have an opportunity that I can either fire back with a snarky response, which is only going to escalate the situation.
Or an inflammatory response.
There you go. And I now react to it. Or I could believe the best and take all of the things in that moment into consideration. Maybe he is tired, he didn't sleep well, maybe he's running late for work, or he just got off of a busy call and he has several things in his mind going on that he needs to take care of. And I just rapid fired a question to him as he was walking by that he was not prepared for. Like, I have a slew of things I can think through. And so believing the best, I then go through the truths that I know about my husband. Okay, he loves me. He does not typically respond to me like this. And I don't want to argue with him. So what can I do to help? And so I now change my response and I don't just react to his reaction. And 9 times out of 10, he comes back around and he'll text me or he'll circle back and he'll just say, I'm sorry, I was, busy with blah, 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 blah. And I am always so thankful that I paused to believe the best about my husband, meaning that his response was not, it didn't warrant a sharp reaction. And it enables me to show up better, to respond with maturity, with calmness. And it's a really good exercise to practice patience, because I would really love for maybe the snarky or the short stuff maybe not to happen. But we're human and it totally does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think along the same lines that there's a lot that this really ultimately has to do with personal accountability. So this is something we've lost as an art in our society, is what is it in myself that I need to do differently to make sure that I don't escalate this situation? What all is happening around the environment that is going to make this situation worse? If I'm believing the best of my wife, knowing that she has had 4 kids at home all day, and potentially when I were to, let's just say I were to maybe come home a little later than normal. Not that that ever happens, but let's just say maybe she expected me to be home at like 5 or 5:30, and then something happened at work and I'm not home till 6 or 6:30. Believing the best, I know what I'm walking into, because she is looking for that handoff, because she's had a long day with a sometimes a challenging situation, and it's important for me to know the environment and be accountable to myself that, hey, sweetie, I am sorry that I'm later than I expected to be. I will be on my way probably 30 minutes later than expected. So I'm communicating that, but I'm also believing the best of her, that I'm giving her time to potentially manage the disappointment of me coming home a little bit later, but then I'm also believing the best of her if I were to come home and she was going to be a little upset because of just being just the day. And personal accountability goes a long way when you look at taking the plank out of your own eye before you point out the speck in hers.
Yeah, that's good. So that's one tool that we share with our kids, and it's probably something that we bring up daily, if not every other day, of just this mindset shift of, okay, well, I understand that X, Y, and Z has happened. And while it's unfortunate that this has happened, if you were to believe the best that this person, be it, your spouse, or as the conversation with our kids, that they did not intend harm on you, then how could your response have changed? And so what would that look like next time if you just paused and evaluated that and responded instead of just reacted to that? Because our end goal always, especially in a marriage, is for peace and for unity, right? You're a team. And so you win as a team and you lose as a team. You are teammates and you sharpen each other, you hold each other accountable. And this is your person. Like he knows all of me, and I know that he's here for all of it. And y'all just pray for him. But but believing the best. So like the end goal is unity. So even believing the best, how do I take steps in my communication? How do I take steps in my response towards peacemaking, towards unity, towards just resolution in this situation?
Yeah. So when I think of respond and not reacting, which I think is a great third takeaway for this, respond, don't react. Knowing the environment, believing the best of your spouse, while still being able to sit there and think, what is she really saying to me? What is the underlying thing that is bothering her or that I need to address? Because if I don't actually address that root cause, we're going to have this conversation again and we're going to unpackage it again. And so am I reacting to the tone of her voice or the emotional response that never comes? Like, she never has emotional responses ever. But if she were to ever have an emotional response, I would be wise to respond to it, not just react. Just like she said earlier, it's only going to escalate the situation if we're not believing the best of each other and understanding that at the end of the day, we're in this together. We are in the trenches right now, more than we ever have been in our marriage before. But I wouldn't want to be doing it in the trenches with anybody else. And it's super important to respond, not react, because when you're responding, you're taking in the whole environment. You're not just looking myopically at what the one tone of her voice was or what the way she looked at me and how she didn't address this issue earlier that I talked about. That was my frustration. No, I'm responding to what she's really saying that she may or may not be saying, because I know my wife. And when I'm in the trenches with her, there's much more to focus on than just the trench. You have to look at the environment, look at the horizon and see, what do we need to do to really resolve this issue? Well, it starts with believing the best of each other.
That's good. That's good.
So
Well, thanks.
What would you say? What would you say in closing is important for everybody to remember? If they don't remember anything else that we said, what's their takeaway?
I think that believing the best is 100% your responsibility. It has nothing to do with your spouse. It is your mindset, your mind shift that happens, and the success of your response starts in your mind. And believing the best is just our universal tagline saying that we have in our house, that immediately, as soon as we say that, it we all know what it means of, and sometimes when we do find ourselves in a conflict, we will absolutely ask each other, is that believing the best of me?
Which goes back to the first point of communication. We know enough about each other. We communicate enough to know that if we're asking each other, are you really believing the best? If we're not, we also need to be honest and communicate that in that moment. So, you know what? No,
Absolutely.
to me, I'm not believing the best.
Yeah, and I think you can discover a lot about even your feelings and your response when you start to uncover, well, did I believe the best? And maybe why not? And what would happen and what would change if I did believe the best next time? And what would, it's just, this is not a one-time fix. This is every single day showing up and evaluating and just leaning in to hard together, leaning into awkward together. And that is the believing the best really is it begins with me and it ends with me. It's all about my ownership, my personal accountability, and it has absolutely nothing to do with your spouse.
I couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us for tip number 2. We cannot wait to see you tomorrow for tip number 3.